What book of the Bible are you currently living in right now? We're about to find out on Worship in the Wilderness. Hello everyone, it's me Tommy Tutu again, and welcome to another episode of Worship in the Wilderness. Now this is a very important episode, so before we begin, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button, and make sure to share this video. We want it to go viral because this is a very important one I was working on. This one is called, What Chapter of the Bible Are You Living Right Now? So you may have heard the expression that when you read the Bible reads you. I myself have experienced this firsthand. When I read some of the books of the Bible, I thought some of them were super boring and repetitive and questionable. And I found out that a lot of those books were actually a reflection of my own life. So after carefully examining my life and consulting other people on their walks in their faith, I was able to break down a typical human life into 12 chapters. So after we read these chapters, the breakdown of our life in 12 chapters, I'm going to show you how it compares exactly to the Bible. So chapter 1 in a normal human life is infancy. This is the stage where we are born and we're just babies walking around in this chapter of our life. Chapter 2 is childhood. This is where we're being raised by our parents and we're taught the ways of life. Chapter 3 is young adulthood. We become grown-ups and start working towards our careers and life goals. Then comes chapter 4, adulthood, and this is where we start to slip. We start letting the wrong friends influence our decisions, and we start flirting with the secular world. Chapter 5 of a typical human life is rebellion. In this chapter, we are fully immersed in sinful lifestyle and refuse to listen to sound advice. It's kind of our party stage where we go wrong. Chapter 6, rock bottom. In this chapter of our life, we experience the devastating consequences of our bad choices and we start crying out for help. Chapter 7 of our life is the turning point. This is where we make the decision to start over and rebuild our lives from the ground up. Chapter 8, reflection. In this part of our life, we look back at our lives before our downfall and we long for the good old days before we caved into sin and destroyed our lives. Chapter 9 of our life is salvation. This is where we find Jesus and discover the true meaning of life. Chapter 10 is witnessing. And in our excitement of finding Jesus, we start spreading the gospel to as many people as possible. Chapter 11 of the human life is maturity. This is our adulthood where Jesus Christ lives through us in our lives. And the final chapter, chapter 12 of our life, is the ending. This is where we reach the end of our physical lives and get ready to move on to heaven. So after breaking down life into these 12 chapters, we can see that there is a direct comparison to the Bible. We're going to take a look at how closely these 12 chapters of the human life compare to the whole entire Bible. And on a side note, I am using the Hebrew order of the Old Testament for comparison, not the English order. There is a difference. We're not going to get into that, but yeah, so if you're wondering why some of these books of the Bible are out of order, it's because I'm using the Hebrew order of the Old Testament. So chapter 1 was infancy, right? Chapter 1 of the Bible is Genesis, the beginning of life. Chapter 2 of the human life was our childhood, which this is like comparable to Exodus and Deuteronomy, where Israel is being taught the rules of life, otherwise known as the law. Chapter 3 was young adulthood, which this is like Joshua through 1 Kings. In these books of the Bible, Israel is establishing itself as a successful nation, just like how our young adulthood, we're trying to establish ourselves with our careers and our house and family. So chapter 4 in the human life, it was adulthood, where we start slipping into sin. And that's just like 2 Kings, which is a documentation of all the kings of Israel who were insufficient due to their allowance of sin. So chapter 5 in the human life was rebellion, and that coincides with the prophetic books of the Old Testament, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, and the 12 minor prophets. In this portion of the Bible, the prophets are warning us against rebellion, and they tell Israel to turn from their evil ways or face disaster. So remember, chapter 6 in the human life was rock bottom, And this is where the writings come in: Psalm, Job, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes. Israel is suffering the consequences of their sins, and they're sent into exile. And these books are kind of like their cry out for help. So chapter 7, the human life, was a turning point. And this is like Ezra and Nehemiah. After returning from exile, in these books, Israel starts rebuilding. So that's like the turning point where you're rebuilding. Chapter 8 was reflection. And this is where Chronicles falls into the Hebrew Bible. This is where Israel looks back at the prosperous times under King David before their downfall. And they start looking forward to the Messiah. So chapter 9 in the human life was salvation, where we find Jesus. Chapter 9 in the Bible is the Gospels: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. This is where we find Jesus Christ, the Messiah, who arrives to take up the sins of the world. So chapter 10 in the human life was witnessing, right? Where we get excited about finding Jesus and we start telling everyone about it. Well, the chapter 10 is comparable in the Bible to Acts, where the disciples start spreading the gospel of Jesus Christ throughout all nations. Chapter 11 in the human life was maturity. And this is like the letters in the Bible, the letters of Paul, James, John, Peter. This is where we're taught to live a Christian life, to follow the lessons of Jesus. So that's comparable to our maturity, where Jesus lives through our lives. And then chapter 12, the ending in the human life, Revelation. And this is where the world comes to an end, but Jesus Christ will return again to come for everyone who believes. So the reason why I'm sharing this is because I was listening to some people in their struggles with life, and I was just thinking about where they are in life, and I was thinking, well, I'm kind of like in Acts right now in my life. My life is like parallel to Acts right now, and their life was like parallel to the Gospels. They're just like one step behind me, or I'm one step ahead of them, however you want to look at it. But I was just thinking about that, and I knew exactly what words to tell this person because I knew where they were in life. So that's why I put this whole chapter breakdown together so other people can use it to learn how to, help their fellow Christians out and know where their walk is in life. So yeah, when I'm talking to people and hear their life story, I often ask myself what chapter of their life that they're in right now. So let's not forget 2 Peter 3:9, which says that the Lord does not want anyone to be destroyed, but wants everyone to repent. So whatever chapter of life your loved ones are in, don't ever stop praying for them. And yeah, just don't ever give up. My mom had 6 kids. Our walks of faith were all at different chapters, at different ages of our lives. And she never stopped praying for us, and all 6 of her kids found salvation. So that's why it's important to know the chapters and phases of people's lives. Just don't give up praying. God exists outside of time and space. He knows where they're going to end up. So don't ever stop praying. And then just one more side note, these chapters are not exactly, there's no line drawn. You could backslide and fall back into some chapters, or you could have some chapters that overlap, like rebellion and rock bottom could hit at the same time. You could be at rock bottom when you hit your turning point and you start reflecting, which is chapter 6, 7, 8. Those could all be happening at the same time. So it's not a black and white line of where you are in life. You're at this exact spot. Some of these kind of blend together. So this isn't like a written gospel or law right here that I have. This is just a study I put together. So anyways, that's all. I just want to share that with you. And I have a question for you. What chapter of the Bible are you living right now? Thanks, and God bless you.